All right, all right. Let's see who's coming on in. Hello, 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 everyone. So excited to be back. I'm going to get this started. Let me just start off by saying that this is, I'm doing something different for season 2. So just bear with me should there be any technical difficulties, because I'm a one-woman show for right now. But hello and happy Friday, people, my beautiful people, my beautiful people. Welcome to Cultivating Conversations. I am your host, Stacey T, and Cultivating Conversations is the podcast where we have thought-provoking dialogue about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, and everything in between. So CCTV is where we have tough conversations about tough topics. It is a safe space, and my hope is that each episode will plant a seed that will cultivate the hearts and cause healing, restoration, and breathe life into dead areas in our lives. So for those of you who were with me for season 1, welcome back. There were quite a few people that was like, where are you? Like, we're going to miss you. We want you to come back. And I said in September when I took the break that I needed to take the break because I was going to be starting school. I'm in grad school and I'm in like my 50,000th year, it seems like. But hey, Alera. So yeah, so I needed to take that time to be able to like just regroup and get in the swing of things with school. But I wanted to start back, and I wanted to start back in December. So we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. So I'm really excited. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome to what I affectionately call CCTV. And just to give you a brief rundown of what this podcast is about and how it got started. I started this podcast in March of this year. So this was one of the projects that God had told me that I was going to be doing, that I was going to be creating a podcast. So between the middle of 2019 and the end of 2019, I started getting things together. So I started creating episode topics. I was doing research on the different platforms and the things that I needed to like get all of my ducks in a row to have everything ready, because the type of person that I am, I like to do my homework and make sure that I know what I'm doing before I start. But I was dragging my feet with it because I was afraid, because this is not something that I'm accustomed to. I do have a little bit of experience behind the camera, but I'm not the type of person, contrary to popular belief, who likes to be in the forefront. That's not my thing. So I dragged my feet with it, and the Lord said to me in March of this year, like, it's time for you to do it. And I'm like, but I don't have all of the information that I want to do and, get everything together so it can be perfect. Hey, Mo. And he said, get out there and do it. And I'm like, but I'm afraid to go live, because when you pre-record, there is a safety net there, because if you fumble over your words, or if you knock something down, or if something kooky happens, you can edit it and then show the perfected edited version. And that I don't want to do live, because I don't like bad surprises. And I said to do it. So, when the Lord tells you to do something more than once, hey, Kim, when he tells you to do something more than once and you don't do it, like, I ain't trying to get whooped. So I was obedient. So I started this podcast on Facebook Live, and I did it at the height of the pandemic. And I understood when I started doing it why the Lord would have me to launch out at that point, because during the height of the pandemic, that's when everything was going crazy. We didn't have a lot of answers. Not that we have so many now, but we didn't have a lot of answers. And so people will shut up in their house, and people were not used to, even an introvert, I don't think is used to being held captive. Like it felt like we was being held captive in our home. So people were kind of going stir crazy. So I started the podcast on Fridays, because normally on Fridays, you finish the work week, you either, going out with your friends, going out to eat, going out to happy hour, going to church on Fridays, and everything was shut down. We couldn't do anything. So in order to create some type of normalcy and some type of sanity so that we wouldn't just be inundating ourselves with CNN and television, that every time we turned around, there was all types of trucks with freezers and all of these people are dying and all of this. So it was really to just kind of kick it, have conversations. Well, one episode turned into two turned into three turned into 25. So I'm like, okay, this is something that I can't stop doing. So for 25 weeks, we had all types of topics. We talked about church. We talked about singleness. We talked about hair. We talked about Black lives. No topic was off limits. And that's the whole premise of, hey, Val, that's the whole premise of, okay, my hair is going to start getting on my nerves. That's the whole premise of Cultivating Conversations, is to have that conversation about things that are hard topics for us to talk about because of shame, the fear of being ridiculed by, people sharing, your true feelings. And when you don't share, when you don't release, the authenticity of how you're feeling, it can lead to bondage. It almost always leads to bondage, right? It leads to hidden shame, it's stagnation, like you're not able to, be your best self. So that's the purpose of Cultivating Conversations, to cultivate hearts, to plant seeds, because we know that to grow anything, you have to plant a seed. And in order for that seed to be planted and for it to grow into something healthy, the ground has to be cultivated, and it has to be good ground. So the purpose of Cultivating Conversations is to, I'm gonna get into this shirt later, Val. The purpose of Cultivating Conversations is to really have those conversations, and hopefully at the conclusion of each episode, it will spark some, hey, Tony, hey, sissy, it will spark some type of conversation, whether it's a conversation that you have to have with yourself or with someone else, any bad blood or toxic air that you need to clear up with friendships, like anything that's going to help to bring wholeness to your life, to those who are around you, to the people that you affect. So that's the purpose of Cultivating Conversations. So I hope that even if you're following me on Facebook, I would hope that you will go to my YouTube channel, because I have a whole YouTube channel now. Which way is it? Right there. That's the logo. So if you go to YouTube and you go to Cultivating Conversations, you can subscribe, even though you follow me on Facebook, because I know for a lot of people, Facebook is easier. But still, go on YouTube, follow my channel so I can get some likes just to make me feel better. Okay. Hey, Serena. So yeah, when I started contemplating on coming back, and what I typically do for those who are getting to know me, I always seek God. I always seek his guidance as far as what he would want me to talk about. What issues does he want me to touch on? Now, this is not a preachy platform, okay? I am a minister by license, but that's not something that I wear on my shoulder. Okay, now the Holy Ghost may kick in and I'll feel a preach in my shanana, and then I have to do what I got to do. But I really want this to be, and the whole purpose of this platform is to just be a conversation, as if we are all sitting together, kicking it, drinking coffee, going out, having a girls' night, whatever, and just having conversations. Okay. But because it's in me, I still desire to get the validation and the approval of God, of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So I always ask him, what is it that you want me to talk about? Like, what is the thing? What is the key word? Like, what is happening? And when I waited, as I often do, and sometimes he'll answer right away, and I'm like, okay. And then other times, he will be like, and I will be like, he will be like, and I will be like, so when you gonna say something, Father? Because I just don't want to go out on a whim and start running my mouth. I want to know like what it is that you would have me to talk about. So this particular theme. So this is going to be a theme for December. And the word that the Lord dropped in my spirit was pivot. Pivot. It was pivot. And I said, okay. And then the rest of it came to me, pivot in a pandemic. And what I realized, and you know, the Lord is so strategic because he had me to come back before 2021. And we have 27 days left, not only to December, but the whole totality of 2020. I was going to say 2020. Is that right? 2020? Yes, 2020. We have 27 days left. And yeah, so the topic tonight is pivot in a pandemic. Okay. The whole theme of this month is pivot. Why is the theme pivot? The theme is pivot because we are at the end of the year. We are at the start of a new decade. And I had spoken a lot in season 1 about the ending of the last decade and how we wanted to do things new and things like that. But this is the start of a new decade, and it's about to be the start of a new year. And 2020 has thrown us some pretty crazy blows. But that does not mean that we have to completely accept everything that's been given to us, everything that we see. We don't have to accept it. And I believe that it is the plan of God and the mind of God that he would want us to shift and change our mindset and our thinking before we get into 2021. So that's why he gave me the word pivot. Pivot means to turn. It means to change. It means to shift. It means to divert. So in this month of December, we're going to be talking about those things in our lives that we need to pivot. We need to pivot our thoughts. We need to pivot our speech. We need to pivot our actions. We need to pivot our relationships. We may need to, and there's been talk about pivoting like careers. Like I've been seeing that a lot. Like if people want to pivot into a new career, you may have been in one particular career or business area for some time, and now you want to pivot into a whole different type of career path. And there's a lot of things being, taught out there about how to pivot into another career. Well, we want to talk about how to pivot our entire thinking, our entire existence, and set ourselves up for 2020. So we're going to be talking this month about different pivotal things that we need to do. Okay, so as customary, like I've done in season 1, all of my business owners, everyone who has a business, a book, whatever, I want you to drop the links below, because here's the great thing. I'm not saying that I had 100 million followers yet, but see, I'm pivoting my words. So when 100,000 people come and like and subscribe to my YouTube page, they're going to see your business. See how I did that right there? Yeah. So, yes, we're going to pivot into 2021. So I want you to drop your books, your businesses, everything that you you have going on. Drop them in the comment section before we get into our episode 1 for season 2. And it's not, I always say this, I'm not going to be before you long, but I promise you, this is the first one. I don't want to scare people off who are here for the first time and like, this chick just talk, because I can, but I don't want to do that. But I just wanted to set the tone for this month. So I want you to drop the comments, drop your yes. I want you to drop, hey Nika. I want you to drop your businesses. Drop them in the comment section before we start. I'm gonna really try to do a hard stop at 10 o'clock, and it's 9:17. So I got about roughly under 45 minutes to 45 minutes. Okay. All right. This is wonderful. So pivoting in a pandemic. Okay, this is what we are talking about tonight. So what does pivoting in a pandemic mean? Pivoting in a pandemic means that we need to change certain things in our mind and in our emotions and in our just our speech. So I'm not going to get philosophical on you, because in a couple of weeks I'm going to have a guest who is going to help us unpack all of this information, because one of the things about this particular time, the holidays, there's something called holiday blues. There's something that happens during the holidays. It can be, because of, especially if you're single, you don't, you wish that you would have been in a committed relationship or married, or you're going through a divorce, or you're going through a hard time with your family, and the holidays just does something where it causes blues, it causes depression. I think it's been said that this is the season that is really high for suicide. So there's a lot that happens during this season. Now you pack on 2020, where we've had a see, this is what I was talking about. Didn't want to go live. You have the pandemic. It's getting darker. We can't come together like we normally do as a family, right? So we have all of these additional facets that are making up this whole thing that causes us to spiral into something that's even worse than if everything was open, right? Everything was open and life was wonderful. Seemingly, we can go out and do things. There are people that would still be depressed, people that would still be feeling away. But now we're tagging on all of these additional things that are happening, and it makes it worse. So the thing about it is that even though things have kind of, spiraled out of control this year, because how many of us thought that by this time, how many of us thought that in April or May or June, that by this time, this pandemic would be far behind us? Like, it would have just seemed like a nightmare that didn't let up, but it was finally over, right? But it hasn't happened. And we're going to be going into a new year with the same situation. And a lot of us, sometimes during the new year, we want to shed things. We want to get rid of, old habits. This is why people do New Year's resolutions. Like, I want to be better. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to change this. I want to change that. And you are, for the most part, in control of the things that you want to change. You're only as good as what you actually can do. You are in control of doing those things. But what happens when you don't have control over the changes you want to make, seemingly? Okay. I want to be able to take a trip in 2021. I want to be able to go out with my friends. I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. but I can't. Not because I don't want to, but because life as we have it with this pandemic would not allow us to. So what happens? What happens now? How can I even begin to make plans for my future when I don't even know necessarily when my future is going to pick up or when I'm going to be able to self-actualize the things that I want to do, because we have this big monkey wrench that has been thrown into 2020, and that is this pandemic. Okay, that's one side of it. The other side of it is that despite 2020, right, and despite how traumatic, despite how traumatic it's been, there have been some great things that happened in 2020. And in order to provide a balanced life and a balanced mindset, we can't just sway all the way to how bad 2020 was. There were some great things that happened in 2020. There were relationships that formulated. People who thought like, there's a bigger purpose in life than, being by myself. I want to have my life partner. I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a committed relationship. I want to move on to building a life with someone, right? Because if there's nothing else that we learned in 2020, it was that life is short. We ain't got time to be fooling around acting like dum-dums out here in these streets, because life is a vapor, and when it's done, it's done. So it would behoove us to act right and do right and love right and get all we can out of life while we're still living. But then you have people who were in relationships and decided to take it to the next level for that reason. So there's all of these engagements that popped up. It seemed like every 3 people in the world has gotten engaged in 2020, right? Beautiful thing, beautiful thing. There are businesses that started, business ventures. There are those who wrote books, people who really, just came into who they are, people who did weight loss challenges and actually adhered to them and reached their desired weight goal. There's so many great things that came out of 2020 despite all of the bad. However, there are people who right now are still sitting in their home perhaps, and they feel like, well, I didn't start a business. I didn't write a book. I wanted to write a book, but I didn't. I tried, but I had all of these obstacles. I broke up with my boyfriend. I'm currently going through a divorce. I didn't have a child. Like, there are people who, while they're watching people go through pivotal and monumental times in their lives, they're sitting and they're saying, and they're assessing 2020, and they're saying, but nothing happened for me. Let me just pause right here to tell you that if you're alive here on December 4th, and you are breathing and you are listening to me, and you have the wherewithal, you have your right mind, and you can understand what I'm saying, that's something to be grateful for. That's something to be grateful for. But this is the thing that I want us to really focus on when we're talking about pivoting. Pivoting is changing the mindset and changing your speech and your attitude and your thoughts about where you are and about where you want to go. It is crucial. I believe with all my heart that it is crucial, especially in this time, that we pivot, that we turn, that we divert from what we have been thinking, because the truth of the matter is everybody hasn't self-actualized. Everybody hasn't come into, the manifestation of who they are, and they've had the aha moment in their life, and they're on this trajectory to do great things. There are people that are yet and still stuck. And that's the reality of it. And there are those of us who have taken baby steps or have taken steps to do things, but circumstances caused us to have to stand still, retreat, and then in our mind, we're telling ourselves, well, I don't even know where to go. Where do I go from here? I'm not going to do a shameless plug of my book, but they don't know where to go. They don't know like what's going to happen in 2021. They don't know, and none of us really know, right? We don't know what 2021 brings, but we know that we have the power in our mouth and we have the power of our mind to be able to, the Bible says, speak those things that be not as though they were. So we have the ability to pivot our thoughts and pivot our words to, instead of saying 2020 has been a mess and it's been crazy and this has been the worst year, and just all of the things that we've heard people say on social media, instead of saying that, we can say, you know what? There were lessons to be learned in this year. So I want to take every moment to assess and reassess all of the things that happened in 2020 on a grand scheme and from a personal standpoint in my personal life. And I really want to take an assessment to figure out what it is that I can do better and what are the plans that I can make for 2021, so that 2021, I'm not, hi Tariq, 2021, I can come in with the plan, because there's a saying that says, if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And some of your plans, they may have to be tweaked. Some of your plans, you may have to go back to the drawing board. We talked last season, earlier in 2020, about vision boards. I really believe that instead of waiting until January, instead of waiting for the clock to strike midnight, we can be working while it's dark earlier outside now, while there's things going on. It's all of these, rumors are swirling, concerns about vaccines, closures, shutdowns. We can kind of like block out the noise and we can start envisioning what we want our 2021 to look like. So that's the whole purpose of the pivot. This month is the month of the pivot. What things do I need to pivot? What mindsets do I want, or do I need, not I want, but that I need to pivot? If you want to date, if you want to find or be found by that person that you can spend the rest of your life with, what is it that I need to do? Not necessarily what I'm looking for. What you're looking for is important. It should not go like unnoticed, but what is it that I need to work on me and fix about me so that I can set myself and position myself to find or be found by that life partner? If I want to change careers, what does that look like? What blogs do I need to read? What YouTube videos do I need to listen to? What areas of LinkedIn connections do I need to make? What do I need to do with my resume? What are the certifications I may need to get in order to make me substantial and higher worthy in a career path that I don't necessarily have experiencing? What does that look like? How can I actualize that? If you feel like, I wanted to lose weight and I couldn't lose weight, and that, it's just so hard. Okay, what is it that I need to change about my diet? What is it that I need to do? This is how we pivot our thinking, instead of automatically just throwing it all away and just waiting until this pandemic is over, waiting until January 1st, waiting until there's a vaccine, waiting until we go outside, and then now we're behind the cusp. Because here's the thing, is it just me, or does anybody feel like 2020 was the fastest, slowest year? Like, it was the fastest, slowest year to me. What do I mean? In March, when all of this pandemic foolishness kicked up, I thought that 2020 was going to be the absolute longest year of life. All of the people dying, all of the racial tension, everything that just added itself to what was already seemingly like a dismal situation. All of the racial injustice, which was a whole nother pandemic. 2020 is finna to feel like 100,000 years. And then the next thing we know, it's December 4th. It's December 4th. Where did the year go? What happened? And I talked about in season 1, and we talked about, reassessing our friendships and relationships and goal planning and doing our vision boards, even in the middle of the year. And now it's December. How many of us have crossed off a third of the things that we plan to do in 2020 despite the pandemic? Now, there are some who are perfectionists, and they, I've done everything that I wanted to do. I've accomplished everything that I want to accomplish because I am fabulous and I am focused and I just do everything. But for the rest of us, there are things that we plan to do and we thought that we had the time, and we didn't. We didn't have the time. Athena says, yes, I'm assessing now, especially with my businesses. And this is the perfect time to assess because we're at the end of, the calendar year. We're in the fourth quarter. The fiscal year is coming to an end. So this is the perfect time to really to assess how our businesses have done, especially after the holidays, and project what we want to do for 2021. That is something that I've had a hard time doing. Assessing what I want to do, because I have so many things in my head and I tend to just get overwhelmed and I'm like, all right, I'll deal with it later. And then I end up not dealing with it, which is bad. However, I'm making sure to make that a matter of, I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to assess my businesses. It was because I took the break from Cultivating Conversations that I was able to use those months to assess and see what I wanted to do. And everything that I wanted to do, for the most part, for this podcast, I did the research, I put it in, I put in the work, and I was able to come back and do what needed to be done. I was able to kind of, bump it up a notch. Serena said, the one thing I learned is that I can't tell everybody about the pivot. Some don't want to pivot or can't handle where you're going. That's absolutely, that's a whole topic. Yeah, sometimes you don't have to. You don't have to make a declaration or a post on Facebook about how you're making moves. You don't have to. Just make them. Just make them, because there's some things that change, but one thing that remains the same is people who try to ruin what you want to do. And then the other thing is that when you put things into the atmosphere, and we know, I don't want to get churchy, but we know we have an enemy, and anything that we do, if it's going to bring us, finances, if it's going to bring us any type of happiness, and God forbid, if it's going to help somebody, he doesn't want it to happen. So he's going to try to throw a monkey wrench in it. So it's better for us to just commit it to prayer and to just move in the pivot. Because here's the thing, the pivot is not about the people. The pivot is not about the people. The pivot is about you. This is about, me. This is about my peace, my joy, my grind, my whole entire vibe. It's not about anybody else. It's not about me to come out of the ashes of being, to myself and MIA and look what I'm doing and all of this. Certain things you're going to have to, go public with if it's a public thing to go public with. But for the most part, just do it because it's for you. It is for you, and it's for the people that you're going to be serving if you have something that you're going to service people with. So yeah, so this was the fastest, slowest year, and it just lets us know that time doesn't wait for anyone. So we definitely need to take advantage of these next 27 days and do that assessment. These next couple of weeks, as we're going through cultivated conversations, we're going to be talking about relationships. We're going to be talking about friendships. We're going to be talking about mental, I don't want to say mental illness, but mental challenges, especially during this pandemic, because we want to be able to pivot. And if we find ourselves going down a direction where it is not conducive to our destiny, not conducive to our happiness, not conducive to our livelihood, not conducive to the people that we love and that love us, we gotta turn. We gotta pivot. We gotta redirect our mind. We gotta redirect our thoughts. We have to redirect our actions. Otherwise, the pandemic is going to be long gone, and we're still going to be in our own personal pandemic of still being hurt and being discouraged and being angry and being jealous and not having let go of those things. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and there's so many people on so many platforms that have said it. Well, I don't know if it's so many people, but I know I've said it. This lockdown was not orchestrated by God, but he allowed it because he needed us to come out of the busyness of life and doing what we wanted to do and doing things our way so that he could get our attention. So he can get our attention for his glory and for our greater good. This is not just about his glory. I mean, that's ultimate, but it's for our greater good. There are some things that we were in, relationships we were in, friendships we were a part of that were detriment to our life. Yes, personal pandemic. There are things that was detrimental to our lives. And the Lord in his sovereignty said, okay, it's time for me to just put everybody on pause. So you won't have any other choice but to deal with the person that should be most important to you, and that is yourself. But because we live in this society where everything is so socially driven, now I'm not one of those proponents saying that, Facebook and social media is the devil and everybody's sharing too much and all that. Yes, that has its place, but can you imagine us going through what we're going through now and not having the means to be able to connect? We can't connect face to face. We're not supposed to be congregating in crowds. We can't get together like we normally get together. Can you imagine? The only thing that we have is the television and the telephone to talk to people. It's wonderful to be able to see, the great things and the celebrations that's going on with other people, especially at a time where we cannot personally and publicly be there to celebrate. How many baby showers were supposed to take place in 2020? How many bridal showers, which I was personally looking forward to because I love me a good bridal shower. How many bridal showers were we looking forward to in 2020? How many trips? I was supposed to go to St. Lucia. I was supposed to go to Jamaica. How many trips were we looking forward to in 2020? And all of that got pulled from under us. Imagine not even being able to see one another. All we have is the phone. But social media, we can come together and we can talk and we can kick it. And it's a wonderful thing. It is a blessing, as much as people want to say that, social media is the devil. Anything can be the devil once he gets his hands into it, honestly. It's just a matter of the purpose that it's being used for. So even with that, the problem is that when it gets too excessive. So now we're looking at what is happening with other people, and people are being excessive in their sharing because they want the validation. They want to show and prove that their life is wonderful and is great and they're happy and all of these things. And then we get drawn into somebody else's life, and then we start to play the comparison. We start to play the role of imagining our life in their shoes, or imagining if it was us instead of them. And that's when things get dicey. And I said all of that to say that that's why we need to pivot, because once you pivot and you turn away from those things, you turn away from those unhealthy thoughts, then you can focus, laser focus on you. And that's what we want to do this month. We want to pivot. So the theme for December is pivot. Pivot in a pandemic. Let's use these last couple of Fridays in December and in 2020, and let's dissect and talk about those hard things, those hard topics that we may need to discuss, so that we can bring healing to ourselves and healing to one another, and just have that desire to want to do better. We don't have to wait until 2021 to do better. We can start doing it now, so that when 2021 comes, we can just keep going and be even better in 2021 than we are in 2020. So that's all I have to say on tonight. I'm so excited about this season. I'm excited about the newness. I'm excited about those who are joining me for the first time. I'm excited about those who have come back. Let me see these last few comments. This pandemic has helped me to develop a better personal relationship with God and a stronger prayer life. Amen. And let me tell you something. If that was the only thing, not the only thing, but if you didn't launch a book, business, if you didn't start a podcast, if you didn't do that, what you have just said, Kim, is greater than all of those things, because you can do the business, you can do the podcast, you can launch the book, you can create a great anything. But if your soul isn't right, if your mindset isn't right, if your attitude isn't right, then number one, how long is what you did going to last? And what is the purpose of it? So above all, to be able to be alive today and to say that despite it all, despite all of the losses, despite all of all the disappointments, I'm still here, and I still have a desire to worship God. I still have a desire to be in his presence. I still have a desire to dream. I still have a desire to dream. I still have a desire to hope that the plans that he has for me are good plans, and they're not to bring me any evil, but they are to bring me hope and to bring me to his expected end. So because he knows the plans, I'm going to rock with his plans. I'm going to submit mine to the counsel of his will, and I'm going to come out of 2020 with hope and inspiration and aspiration and all other Asian to want to do what he has called me to do, and to do those things that is going to bring him glory. I'm going to pursue my dreams in 2021, but it's going to start now. It's going to start in December. It's going to start as I pivot. I'm going to pivot and set myself up, because, okay, this is the last thing I wanted to say. Thank you, Lord, for the reminder. So the other word, when I think about pivot, and I was thinking about pivot when I was driving today, I thought about the word recalculation, right? Recalculate. So if anybody uses a GPS, you know that if you put your destination in, I feel the preach. All right. If you put your destination in, right, and the GPS tells you the steps and the direction that you need to get there. Okay. But if you make a mistake and take a wrong turn, what does the GPS do? The GPS recalculates. Why? Because now the GPS has to assess where you are and compare that to where you want to go, where your destination was that you put in the GPS. And now it has to recalculate you to get you back on the path that you needed to be on to get to the destination that you was headed to. It's a whole word. So with pivoting, to me, all that means is that the things that happened in 2020, the potholes, the ambushes, the things that took us by surprise, the things that we were not expecting, those are the detours. Those are the side roads that we may have gotten on, whether it's our thought, our speech, or anything like that. And now this is the time to recalculate so that we can pivot and get back to the path that God has for us, the path that we carved out for ourselves. And I'm not talking about the things that we carved out for ourselves, but the Lord was like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when your destiny, when your dreams, when your goals, when your plans line up with God's plans, but the vicissitudes of life, that sounded real preachy. The trials of life have landed you on a dirt road, on a back road somewhere that wasn't necessarily a part of the route to your destiny. So now it's time to recalculate so that we can pivot and go in another direction that is the direct antithesis of where we was headed, which was not good because we was allowing the things, our circumstances, what we saw in our mind to guide us. We cannot allow our circumstances to guide us. We have to be the ones to guide our circumstances. We have to be the ones that dictate how we feel about what has happened. And that's something that I had to learn myself. I will not allow the circumstances that I find myself in or the things that happen that try to knock me off course to dictate my thoughts, my emotions, my attitude. And that's easier said than done. I promise you, because I've been dealing with that as of late. Instead, I'm going to dictate. So yeah, I may feel a way about this. And yeah, 2020 may have dealt me some blows and I may not be in the place that I imagined myself, surely because at the stroke of midnight of 2020, I just knew that 2021 was going to be all of these great things and things didn't pan out the way I wanted them to. However, I'm not going to sit in the fact that it was not what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the recalculating and I'm going to pivot. I'm going to shift my thoughts so that I can focus on where it is that I'm supposed to be and figure out the tools and what I need to do to get there. That's what we're talking about this month. Pivot. Pivot even in a pandemic. We do not have to wait until 2021. We do not have to wait until this pandemic is over to start life, to start planning, to start dreaming, to start making moves. We don't have to wait. We can do that now. So that's what we are going to be doing in the month of December. So in conclusion, thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for joining Cultivating Conversations. I am your host, Stacey T, and I pray and hope that I have sown some type of seed on good ground and that your heart is cultivated and that once this is all over, this episode is over, that you would take an assessment and think about 2020 and think about the month of December and think about where you want to be in 2021. And let's start doing the work. Let's do it individually. And then let's start doing it together. All right. So I'm Stacey T and I am signing off. Peace out.